In today's video, we're going to address one of the biggest concerns going on with this market, which is a capitulation signal on one of my most favorite indicators and what that actually means. I do have a few comments to be made on that. And then also checking out on some of the more macro charts for Bitcoin and essentially continuing on with this overall picture that we've been painting for the last few months now, as we have the next few pieces of data here, which are playing into the overall analysis, which is good. Anyways, before we get into it, I should let you know that you can get the Meta Signals service for free for the first 14 days if you follow the directions in the link in the description below. There's also a discount code for you there as well if you do decide to go into it. I should let you know that Meta Signals is a project that I've invested in and that I'm an advisor on, so I'm heavily biased towards it. But basically, it is a setup service which gives you probabilistic outcomes for current price action based off of, objective viable signals. So without further ado, we can just jump right into this one, starting off with the content of the day, which is the capitulation signal, which is based off the hash rate indicator over here, which we've used many a time in the past. And to give its fair due, yes, indeed, there is a capitulation signal as of when was this? Yeah, May 13th. So, almost about a week ago as of right now. Now, here's the thing, and here's sort of a general warning that I kind of have for most people out there, because I think this really illustrates one of the main points that I hope to get across on my channel, which is whenever you just read a title of an article or a headline or these sort of things, very rarely do they go into detail, obviously, because they need to be brief. And then, as always, whenever you do read these sort of things, you should try to verify yourself, or at least, go one step further. Or maybe that's just my job because I'm the only fucking nerd who's still looking at this damn shit after all of these years. I don't know. But in this case, a capitulation signal in the past has had some concerns. A lot of the time, it's not the capitulation signal that you're looking for; it's a buy signal that actually has a high fidelity for an actual outcome. The capitulation signal itself, it's kind of hit or miss with actually preceding or post-seeding, major lows. A lot of the time, it's printed at or a little bit after the next major low, and in some cases, it does happen before. But I'll give you an example of it not working and then also it working. So in this case right here, you get a capitulation signal right here. Price comes down significantly. Yep. Okay. Fair enough. That one worked out. Then we get another one over here, right? And this one, if you would have taken that just at face value, you would have been absolutely fucking wrecked. So I'm going to get rid of these two bars as of this, and I'll give you at least what I think is most relevant as of right now. So, of course, Bitcoin just had one of its most important events, fundamentally speaking, about a month ago, right? On April 20th. Was it April 20th? Yes, indeed it was. It was April 20th, which I've outlined on this chart by these red vertical bars. So these are post-halving dates. And I wanted to look at the signal that happens after that halving date. And I found something that I think was pretty interesting. We can start off with the first one over here in 2012. Here's our halving. Here's your capitulation signal. Do you notice anything about that? I don't know. It's pretty fucking good buy area. Maybe, it depends on your disposition. But Krown, it could have gone down 5% lower. You fucking moron! It's like, all right. I'm not perfect. Anyways, what do we have over here in the next halving? 2016 June. Again, we have halving. We have capitulation signal on the next sort of drop off. Do I even have that? Maybe actually it is one more to the right there. And yeah, the low is put in about a couple days later. Not a huge percentage drop off from there, but ultimately, yeah, it was a small drop off. But again, this was more or less an opportunity long term. I mean, here's some perspective for you, from this zone here to the next major high. A casual 3,000% move to the upside, not bad. Then we have the most recent, the second to most recent halving over here. Again, this was May of 2020. And right after then, we got another capitulation signal on the hash ribbons indicator. This one happening pretty much exactly at the low. It actually, the low happened about maybe one day later. But again, hindsight, 600% move to the upside, not bad. And then, of course, we have another halving over here, represented by the red vertical bar. And we have a capitulation signal here as of about a week ago. So, did Bitcoin already put in the low, or does it maybe have one more try to the downside? Maybe, I don't know. But ultimately, just another thing, at least in my opinion, from looking at this and parsing through the data, whether this thing does come down another time below $60,000 or not, that's a major opportunity. I'm actually looking at this as of right now that the low is probably already in. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't come back down to $60,000. That would still actually be a higher low overall, but ultimately, the low probably in. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to get into this chart right here. This is another chart that we've been viewing many a time. This is the Bitcoin production cost fundamental chart. Again, just another look at this one. As it has accurately predicted the basement price for Bitcoin over the full history of Bitcoin. And if you're not familiar with this, basically the bottom of this channel, which represents the lowest cost to produce a Bitcoin, has really never been breached on any sort of meaningful long-term basis throughout Bitcoin's history. Anytime that Bitcoin does come down to it, which are very few and far between, only about four or five times that that's actually happened, those have all been phenomenal opportunities. The last time we saw something like this was actually back on over here, November 2022. What was that? I don't know. That's the current cycle low. Rona dump hit it a little bit. Before that, you got the last halving over here. And before that, you don't really even get super close to the bottom end of that channel. So again, Bitcoin is very close to the bottom end of this channel. In fact, the dump that happened last week, where Bitcoin on a wick basis wicked below $60,000, actually hit the bottom side of this channel. Actually wicked a little bit below it. Again, I'm just looking at closures right here, but well, fuck it. Let's just put it on hollow dildos for a second. And you can see, yeah, it came down almost precisely to it. Quite interesting right there. Anyways, again, just another thing for the long term. It's probably an opportunity. Don't need to fucking complicate this too goddamn much. We can take this even one step further, however, and I'll go over here. And what was I going to do in this chart? I completely forgot. That's right, because it's over here. Needed a prompt, and my notes don't have them for this one. This is the dynamic range MVT signal. Again, this is something that we've looked at a few times over the past few months, and it's essentially a way of looking at Bitcoin's PE ratio, price to earnings ratio. Obviously, Bitcoin doesn't have price to earning ratio, but it's finding some sort of equation that can give us some identifiable metric as to over and under valuation areas. So the most important thing is, has this worked in the past? What are the results? Show me the damn results. And what we're going to be analyzing right here is the most relevant area, which is anytime that we've seen this dynamic range MVT go below the green bar, which, by the way, I want to give another shout out to Charles Caprioli for this one, as we've actually used a couple of his indicators here, the hash ribbons, actually all of these, the hash ribbons, the production cost, and then also the dynamic range MVT. I'm just a Caprioli analyst at this point. But his work, in my opinion, his work is incredibly good, incredibly valuable. In fact, the only fundamental person that I think happens to know a fuck about shit, happens to know a shit about fuck, perhaps. Anyways, what are we looking at right here? We're looking at the dynamic range MVT, actually below the green bar, which has signaled in the past areas of undervaluation, meaning that long term, buying under this region, likely a good buy, likely a good value buy, again, long term. Maybe not the same day, maybe not the same week, maybe not even the same month, but long term, yes. And so what I've done is I've marked off on the chart, which we'll go to in a moment, all of the past times where we've seen the dynamic range MVT below that green bar and then start to turn up, because we have just seen it as of the past few closures start to really turn up vertically here in a way that we did not see before. So this is starting to look a lot more like the other ones where we have seen turnarounds. And what I've done over here on this chart is marked off those prior times. And what do you know? Is it a major surprise? I don't know. Maybe it's a major surprise. Even in the 2022 downside hellish bear market, these areas marked off dramatic bounces. This area over here, 30% bounce. And that's, by the way, on a closing basis. On a wick base, probably significantly more. This one over here, almost 30% bounce. Obviously, in other pieces of the market where it's just vertical, I mean, it was the low, essentially, the low of 2022, the low of 2021 before the prior all-time high was printed, the low coming in after Rona over here, the low of 2018, the low before 100% bounce in 2018, February, by the way. The lows of the corrections from the 2016 to 2018 cycle. And then we obviously don't have data preceding this area, but I would imagine that it's probably acting relatively similar. And seeing as it is starting to turn back up yet again, alongside this, I'm very inclined to say Bitcoin probably already has a lows in. Again, doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't come back down, maybe even around the current lows. Don't have a strong opinion on that, although it is looking more and more likely that Bitcoin might just bulldoze its ways through here. But the second that this thing goes back and closes above the green bar, I'd say this is essentially confirmed. In fact, I might even look at it as already confirmed, because anytime you get this sort of curvature to the upside on this indicator, it has followed through. Just about every time. Only one time where that was not true, which was back on over here. But then again, this was still so close to the fucking low. It's like, how precise do you need to be? Again, if you're very, very long term, if you're more like a multi-year long investor, is that a game that you want to play where you try to eke out, a few more percentage points from this one? That's up to you, of course. But in my opinion, if you're thinking like 5-10 years down the road, even probably a couple years down the road, it's probably not going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. I mean, it's not going to be the difference between between extremely rich and really rich, or extremely poor, or just a little bit poor. Yeah. So moving on from there, we can get into some of our normal tools. Looking at the HPDR bands here, we can see Bitcoin playing between the 61.8 level and the 50% level right here. I don't really have any major reads to be making off this for the daily, particularly as of now. Obviously, closing above the 61.8 level today would look generally good and open up the doors for a move, probably to 71 or 72,000 bucks relatively fast. But I don't have a strong opinion on this. This is extremely low volatility weekend. I don't think it's wise to be making any sort of directional analysis in the more short term here. If anything, I mean, Bitcoin probably poised to take a little bit of a pullback, but the weekly is the big focus, of course, as it is closing tonight. Any sort of a closure above the 38.2 level, and I do suspect that we will continue to see this volatility crunch, which will make the median here on the bands essentially a magnet for price action. Now, to be fair, that will extremely likely come down on this next weekly open later tonight. But I expect it comes down to like low 70s. Assuming that Bitcoin closes above especially like 67,000 bucks tonight. You probably do see another try towards 70,000 plus, and we'll come back to it after that. I think CME already did such. Yes, indeed, it did. And volatility actually is still coming down there, at least on the moving average. So I would be biased towards, probably push towards 70,000 bucks overall, maybe after a short-term pullback. Short-term pullbacks can easily come down to like 66. But yeah, anyways, other than that, just big focus on these three big charts over here: the hash ribbons, the production cost, and the dynamic range MBT. All of which I think are painting a long-term picture that, hey, get as cute. If you're feeling cute, you can get as cute as you want, but probably up. Probably very likely up. Really, only way that I start to take away this is if Bitcoin started to trade back down below 60,000 bucks on CME. At that point, yeah, sure, you have your corrections down to low 50s, but I think that's less and less, it's becoming less and less likely here. Even as long as Bitcoin's above 66, I mean, for fuck's sake. But yeah, always happy to eat my words at the end of the day. If that does indeed happen, that's why we do have those reversal points in mind. But for right now, Bitcoin is doing what the boo laws seemingly want. So I'll end it on that note. As always, I want to wish you the best of the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Monday.